Have you ever felt like you're living a life that's smaller than what you're truly capable of? Like there's something inside you, a power, a gift, a way of being that's never been fully expressed. Maybe it shows up as that quiet voice when you're alone, that feeling of something missing even when everything looks fine on the outside, that sense that you are meant for something more than what your daily routine has become. Most of us react to this feeling in one of two ways. We either push it down, telling ourselves to be realistic, practical, grateful for what we have, or we chase after external achievements, more money, better jobs, higher status, thinking these things will finally make that feeling go away. But what if both these approaches completely miss what your true potential actually is? What if the secret to becoming all you can be isn't found in either ignoring that inner voice or in chasing after success? What if the answer was discovered decades ago by a man named Jung, who saw something about human potential that almost everyone else has missed? Jung found something remarkable. Your true potential isn't about becoming some perfect, ideal version of yourself. It's about becoming whole. It's about bringing together all the parts of who you are, even the parts you've rejected, hidden, or never recognized, into one complete self that can access all your natural human abilities. This video isn't for people looking for quick life hacks or surface-level success tricks. It's for those who feel that deeper calling, that sense that there's something more authentic within you waiting to be lived. It's for those brave enough to walk what Jung called the most difficult path of all, to face your own shadow. Today, I'll show you Jung's 5 steps to unlocking your true potential. Steps that don't ask you to become something different, but to become more fully who you already are. And by the end, you'll understand why reaching your highest potential isn't about adding something new to yourself, but about recovering what's been there all along. Carl Jung spent his life studying the human mind, not just what makes us sick, but what makes us whole. While other psychologists focused on fixing problems, Jung was fascinated by what helps humans reach their fullest expression. He called this process individuation, becoming a complete individual. What makes Jung's approach so different is that it completely changes how we think about potential. For Jung, becoming your best self isn't about maximizing certain qualities while getting rid of others. It's about bringing all parts of your mind together, including the parts you've denied, the qualities you've hidden, and the abilities you've never acknowledged. I've studied Jung's ideas for years, not just his writings, but how his insights have been used to help real people transform their lives. I've seen how his approach creates deeper and more lasting change than conventional self-improvement methods that just focus on achievement. Before we start, understand that Jung's path isn't a straight line to some fixed destination. It's more like a spiral that moves both inward toward deeper self-knowledge and outward toward more authentic engagement with the world. Each stage builds on the one before it, creating a deeper connection with your whole self and with your life. Let's begin with the first and maybe most important step in Jung's path to realizing your true potential. The journey to your authentic potential starts not with addition, but with recognition. Specifically, recognizing what Jung called the persona, the social mask you've created to deal with the outside world. This mask isn't just a fake identity. It's a complex psychological structure you've developed in response to what others expect, what culture demands, and what earned you acceptance early in life. Think of the persona as the character you play in the drama of your life. For some, it's the achiever who always exceeds expectations. For others, it's the caretaker who puts everyone else first. It might be the smart one with all the answers, the rebel who breaks all the rules, or the peacemaker who avoids all conflict. The persona isn't bad in itself. It serves important purposes, helping you navigate social situations and maintain a consistent identity in different contexts. The problem comes when you mistake this character for your whole self, when you start to believe that the role you play is who you actually are. Jung saw this confusion all the time in his work. Successful professionals who felt inexplicably empty despite their achievements, devoted parents who felt lost and hollow once their children left home, social chameleons who could fit perfectly into any situation, yet felt deeply fake in all of them. In each case, the person had become so identified with their persona that they'd lost touch with deeper parts of themselves. Confronting the persona happens in 3 steps. First comes recognition, becoming aware of the specific masks you wear in different settings. This awareness often emerges in moments when your inner experience contradicts your outer presentation. The executive who maintains a confident facade while feeling deeply inadequate inside. The social butterfly who acts extroverted despite craving solitude. The family peacekeeper who keeps things calm while suppressing rage. The second step is differentiation, consciously separating your identity from the roles you play. This doesn't mean abandoning your social functions, but developing the ability to step in and out of them with awareness. You start to recognize thoughts like, "I should be more assertive in meetings," as social programming rather than personal truth, creating space between your awareness and your conditioned responses. The third step is reintegration, consciously choosing which aspects of your persona to keep and which to let go. This isn't about rejecting your social roles completely, but transforming them from unconscious habits into conscious choices. You might still be the achiever, the caretaker, or the mediator, but now these roles serve your authentic development rather than replace it. What makes confronting the persona so critical to realizing your potential is that it frees up enormous psychological energy. Jung observed that maintaining an artificial self-presentation requires constant vigilance, consuming energy that could otherwise fuel genuine growth and expression. When you release the need to be someone you're not, you reclaim the energy needed to become more fully who you are. But the persona is just the outermost layer limiting your potential. Beneath it lies something far more challenging to face, what Jung called the shadow. Once you've started to separate your identity from your social masks, you encounter what Jung considered the most crucial threshold in the journey toward wholeness: confronting the shadow. The shadow contains all the aspects of yourself that you've denied, repressed, or never developed. Not because they don't exist, but because they contradicted your conscious self-image or what society expected of you. Jung described the shadow not as some evil or monstrous part of personality, but simply as that which we do not wish to be. It contains qualities that may be positive or negative, but they all share one feature: they've been excluded from your conscious identity. For the person who identifies as kind, their shadow may hold their capacity for healthy assertiveness. For the rational thinker, it might contain their emotional sensitivity. For the responsible achiever, perhaps their playfulness and spontaneity. What makes shadow work so essential to realizing your potential is a simple but profound truth. Energy used for repression cannot be used for expression. Every aspect of yourself that you deny requires psychological energy to keep suppressed. Embracing these disowned parts doesn't just make you more complete. It liberates vital energy previously consumed by the work of repression. The process of shadow integration involves several key steps. First comes recognition, becoming aware of your shadow material through what Jung called projections. Projection happens when you strongly react to qualities in others that you deny in yourself. The person who is secretly judgmental becomes hypersensitive to criticism from others. The individual with unacknowledged anger is particularly bothered by others' aggression. Your projections are essentially a map to your shadow. They reveal precisely what you've disowned within yourself. The second step is reclamation, the deliberate reintegration of shadow aspects into conscious identity. This doesn't mean giving these qualities free rein, but acknowledging them as parts of your psychological makeup. Jung described this process as making the darkness conscious, not to act out its contents, but to remove its hidden influence over behavior. The third step is transformation, the alchemical process where shadow energies are redirected toward constructive expression. Jung borrowed the term transmutation from medieval alchemy to describe how raw psychological material, once consciously embraced, can be refined into valuable capacities. Aggression becomes healthy assertiveness. Selfishness becomes appropriate self-care. Rebelliousness becomes creative innovation. What makes shadow work so powerful for realizing potential is that your shadow often contains precisely the qualities you need to achieve your deepest aspirations. The caretaker who cannot say no finds their capacity for healthy boundaries in their shadow selfishness. The perfectionist paralyzed by fear of failure discovers their ability to take risks in their shadow's capacity for imperfection. Your shadow isn't separate from your potential, it's an essential component of it. But confronting both persona and shadow still addresses only the conscious and personal unconscious aspects of your psyche. To access your fullest potential, Jung believed, you must also connect with what he called the collective unconscious and its archetypal energies. Beyond the personal unconscious lies what Jung called the collective unconscious, a shared psychological inheritance containing universal patterns he termed archetypes. These archetypes aren't specific images or ideas, but fundamental organizing principles of the human mind, expressing themselves through symbols, dreams, myths, and cultural patterns across time and place. Engaging with archetypes represents a critical expansion in your journey toward wholeness. While persona work focuses on social adaptation and shadow work addresses personal repression, archetypal work connects you to universal human capacities that go beyond individual experience. Through this connection, you gain access to psychological resources and potentials that extend far beyond your personal history. Jung identified numerous archetypes, but several are particularly important for realizing potential. The hero archetype embodies courage, determination, and the ability to overcome obstacles. When consciously engaged, it provides the strength to face challenges that might otherwise seem impossible. However, if unconscious, it can show up as reckless risk-taking or an unhealthy savior complex. Engaging consciously with the hero within allows you to access courage without being driven by it unconsciously. The magician archetype represents transformation, insight, and the power of awareness itself. It's expressed through your ability to see patterns, create meaning, and transform situations through understanding. When integrated, this archetype enables you to see beyond apparent limitations and recognize possibilities others miss. The caregiver archetype embodies nurturing, compassion, and the ability to support growth in yourself and others. Conscious engagement with this energy allows you to provide genuine care without self-sacrifice or unhealthy dependency. The most effective leaders, teachers, and healers express this archetype in balance with others, creating environments where potential can flourish. The sage archetype represents wisdom, perspective, and the search for truth. It shows up as the ability to step back from immediate concerns and see larger patterns and meanings. When consciously engaged, this archetype enables you to make decisions aligned with deeper values rather than reactive impulses. Engaging with archetypes involves several distinct practices. First is recognition, becoming aware of how archetypal energies express themselves in your life, dreams, and imagination. This begins with studying archetypal patterns across cultures and noticing which ones resonate most strongly with you. Some are drawn powerfully to the explorer archetype's quest for discovery, others to the ruler's capacity for order and leadership, still others to the creator's drive for innovation. The second practice is amplification, deliberately engaging with symbolic material that strengthens your connection to specific archetypal energies. This might involve studying mythological figures who embody qualities you wish to develop, creating art that expresses archetypal themes, or engaging in rituals that evoke particular archetypal experiences. The third practice is integration, developing the ability to express archetypal energies consciously, rather than being possessed by them unconsciously. Jung observed that when archetypal forces remain unconscious, they tend to manifest in rigid, extreme forms. The hero becomes the fanatic, the lover becomes obsessive, the sage becomes coldly intellectual. Conscious integration allows for flexible, balanced expression, appropriate to different contexts. What makes archetypal work so powerful for realizing potential is that it connects your individual development to universal human capacities. You're no longer trying to build capabilities from scratch, but rather activating patterns that already exist within the structure of the human mind. The question shifts from, how do I become something I'm not, to how do I access capacities that are already mine by virtue of being human? But engaging with archetypes still addresses primarily the contents of the unconscious. To fully realize your potential, Jung believed, you must also develop a new relationship with consciousness itself, what he called the self. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. At the center of Jung's understanding of human potential lies what he called the self. Not the ego or personality, but the organizing center of the entire psyche, both conscious and unconscious. The self represents the totality of who you are beyond any partial identification, the integrating principle that holds all aspects of your psyche in relationship. Jung carefully distinguished between the ego, the center of consciousness and identity, and the self, which encompasses both consciousness and the vast territory of the unconscious. While the ego says, I am this particular person with these particular characteristics. The self represents your wholeness prior to any such definitions or limitations. Cultivating a relationship with the self marks a profound shift in your approach to potential. Rather than trying to develop specific capabilities, you're fostering the condition from which all authentic capabilities naturally emerge. You're attending not to what you can do, but to what you fundamentally are, the ground from which all doing arises. The cultivation of the self involves several essential practices. First is differentiation, developing the ability to distinguish between ego identity and self-experience. This begins with recognizing moments when you operate from a more expansive awareness than your usual self-concept. These might include flow states during creative work, moments of deep connection in relationships, or experiences of meaning that go beyond personal concerns. Through careful attention to these states, you begin to recognize a mode of being that includes but isn't limited to your familiar identity. The second practice is dialogue, establishing conscious communication between ego and self through what Jung called active imagination. This involves creating conditions where unconscious material can emerge into awareness without being immediately interpreted or controlled by the ego. Through practices like journaling, artistic expression, or contemplative dialogue, you develop a receptive relationship to content emerging from beyond conscious identity. The third practice is surrender, developing the ability to temporarily set aside ego control and allow the self to guide perception and action. This doesn't mean abandoning discernment, but rather recognizing when ego-driven effort is less effective than receptive attention. You learn to notice when forcing a solution blocks the natural emergence of insight, when controlling a situation prevents authentic connection, when defining yourself limits your response to what's actually needed. What makes self-cultivation so powerful for realizing potential is that it addresses the fundamental relationship between consciousness and the unconscious. Rather than attempting to extract specific capabilities from the unconscious through willpower, you're establishing the conditions for organic integration of all your capacities. The question shifts from how do I develop this particular potential to how do I remove the obstacles to my wholeness? But even as this relationship with the self develops, one critical challenge remains: the application of this wholeness in the context of everyday life and society. This brings us to the final stage in Jung's path to potential: living your individuation. The culmination of Jung's path isn't some transcendent state separate from ordinary life. It's the embodiment of your wholeness within the concrete circumstances of your existence, what he called living your individuation. This final stage involves bringing the fruits of inner work into tangible expression through your relationships, work, and engagement with society. Living your individuation doesn't mean achieving some fixed state of completion. It's an ongoing process of expressing an ever-deepening relationship with your own totality. As Jung wrote, individuation is not an attainment, it's a way. It's the continuous translation of inner wholeness into outer action, a bridge between who you are in essence and how you show up in the world. This embodiment involves several key elements. First is authentic vocation, aligning your external work with your inner nature. Vocation in the Jungian sense isn't simply career or occupation. It's the unique way your individuality seeks expression in service to something beyond yourself. This might happen through conventional professional channels or through entirely personal forms of contribution. What matters isn't the external form, but the authentic connection between inner reality and outer action. The second element is relational authenticity, expressing your wholeness within the context of human connection. This doesn't mean imposing your process on others or using relationships as venues for self-expression. Rather, it involves bringing your integrated self into genuine exchange with others, creating the conditions for mutual recognition and growth. The third element is cultural contribution, offering your uniqueness as a gift to the larger human community. Jung believed that individual development serves not just personal fulfillment, but collective evolution. Each person who integrates previously unconscious material makes that integration more accessible to others, contributing to the psychological development of humanity as a whole. What makes living your individuation so essential to realizing potential is that it closes the circle between inner development and outer manifestation. Inner work without expression becomes abstraction. Expression without inner work becomes performance. Only through their integration does authentic potential fully manifest. The ultimate measure of realized potential in the Jungian framework isn't achievement, recognition, or even personal satisfaction. It's the degree to which your outer life becomes a faithful expression of your inner wholeness, the extent to which who you are and what you do emerge from the same integrated source. Now that you've made it this far, I want you to truly consider the deep invitation that Jung's approach offers. This isn't about becoming more successful in conventional terms. It's about becoming more real, more complete, more authentically yourself. And paradoxically, it's in this authenticity that your greatest contributions to the world will emerge. We've explored Jung's 5-step path to realizing your true potential, confronting the persona, embracing the shadow, engaging the archetypes, cultivating the self, and living your individuation. Each step represents not an addition to who you already are, but a removal of what prevents your wholeness from showing itself. What makes Jung's approach different from conventional models of potential is its fundamental orientation. Most approaches begin with the question, how do I become more than I am? Jung's approach begins with the recognition, I am already more than I know. The journey isn't about acquisition but reclamation, not about building something new, but about recovering what has been there all along. This perspective transforms how we understand both obstacles and growth. What appears as limitation, the unacknowledged shadow, the rigid persona, the disconnection from archetypal energies, is actually an opportunity for integration. What presents as failure, the collapse of a one-sided identity, the disruption of ego plans, the emergence of unwelcome truths, becomes an invitation to greater wholeness. There's a deep paradox at the heart of Jung's vision. The path to becoming what you're capable of requires abandoning your ideas about what that should look like. As Jung himself wrote, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who you think you should be, not who others expect you to be, not even who you've always wanted to be, but who you already are beneath all such ideas. This journey isn't linear or predictable. It spirals between conscious and unconscious, between integration and disintegration, between moments of great clarity and periods of necessary confusion. What looks like regression may actually be preparation for a more authentic advance. What feels like loss of certainty, of familiar identity, of clear direction, often comes before the emergence of something more genuine. If this exploration has touched your own experience of seeking authentic potential, write "I choose wholeness" in the comments. Let's see how many people are ready to embrace a vision of potential, based not on achievement alone, but on the integration of all they truly are. And don't forget to watch the next video in this series, where I'll explore Jung's map of the unconscious, and show how understanding the territory of your own mind can help you navigate life's most challenging transitions. Because knowing the landscape is essential to finding your authentic path through it. See you there.